Let's talk about the not-so-unlikely possibility of the U.S. going to war with China. Now, this is a scenario that I have been thinking about a lot recently, mostly because of how close we are to that happening. The situation in Taiwan right now is more precarious than it has ever been since 1945. And China's recent actions in the South China Sea have been nothing short of alarming. So let's just cut to the chase. If the U.S. and China went to war, who would win? Now, the answer might surprise you. It would not be the United States, despite what many Americans may think. The Chinese military is actually much larger than the U.S. military, both in terms of personnel and budget. China spends around $200 billion a year on its military, while the U.S. spends around $700 billion. But that doesn't tell the whole story. China has a population of 1.4 billion people, while the U.S. has a population of 330 million. So when you adjust for population, China actually spends more on its military per person than the U.S. does. China also has a larger and more active military. As of 2021, China had 900,000 active military personnel, while the U.S. had 1.4 million. But China's military is much more active, with troops taking part in live fire exercises every single day. But even with all of these advantages, China still wouldn't be able to win a war against the U.S. The U.S. has too much firepower. Even though China has more tanks, fighter jets, and naval ships, the U.S. has more powerful weapons. For example, the U.S. has aircraft carriers, which are the most powerful warships in the world. China doesn't have any. The U.S. also has a large number of nuclear warheads, more than double that of China's. So if the two were to go to war, it would be a very close fight, but the U.S. would likely come out on top. But that's not even the interesting part. The interesting part is why they would be fighting in the first place. The U.S. and China have a lot of issues, but war isn't inevitable. In fact, it's highly unlikely that it would ever happen. The two countries have too much to lose, and both of them know it. The U.S. has a population of only 330 million people. If China were to invade Taiwan, that would mean that the U.S. would have to get involved. That means that the entire U.S. military, which is the most powerful fighting force in the history of the world, would be fighting against China. There's no way that China would be able to win that war. But the crazy thing is that China knows that. So the only reason that they would invade Taiwan is if they felt like they had no other choice. And right now, that's looking more and more likely. Taiwan is being pushed towards a very dangerous edge. China is surrounding the island with military bases. They're conducting military drills near the island, and they've even threatened to invade the island. The question is, how much longer will Taiwan be able to hold out? If you want to better understand global politics, stay tuned for more.